Hello all you adorable fluff butts out there. Kitthesoulless here, and welcome back to another Greymuzzle Talks. And yeah, I know, we haven't done one of these in a while, but the reason for that is I've honestly been terrified of sharing my opinions anymore. But having watched our community over the last couple years in relative silence, I've started noticing things that really bother me again, so I've decided it's time for me to open up and start talking again. And ideally, these videos will be coming out alongside Frost's every Saturday, but for this week, a lot of the people in my household are sick, Frost included, so here we are. And Fluffbutts, I've gotta say, as a community, we really need to start trying to communicate better. And because I know there are bound to be a couple people out there who are going to get butthurt over what I say, I feel the need to point out that this series is entirely opinion-based. But with that said and out of the way, it feels like we as a community have somehow forgotten how to communicate. And given that our community is made up primarily of social outcasts, I mean, that's not really that shocking, but at the same time, good communication is one of those things that we all need to grow, both individually and as a community. And I can already hear people out there going, "But we communicate just fine with our friends!" And yes, while that's all fine and good, I'm talking about how people in our community deal with the people they don't like. You see, over the past couple years, it seems like the dialogue between the two sides of the divide in the furry community and in the majority of the world has become less of a dialogue and more of a shouting match, with neither side being willing to hear the other out. And while it can feel good to hold the moral high ground over somebody that you despise, in the long run, it does nothing for our community. Well, other than making that divide I mentioned a lot worse, because think of it this way. What would you do if somebody came at you screaming, "You're a monster! You need to die! Kill yourself!" Because, you see, in cases like that, personally, I know my first response is, let's block this fool. But what if we didn't have to get to that point? What if we could sit down and have a calm, rational discussion about the problems we have with each other, and find ways to help each other grow and better ourselves? After all, it takes a village to raise a child, and if you don't know what that particular proverb means, it's a way of saying that for somebody to grow and to become the best version of themselves, the community around them has to be willing to interact with them positively. And this is where I need to very much stress that last word, positively. Because no sane person would expect a child to be able to learn and grow into the best version of themselves if all they ever hear is the people around them screaming at them that they're terrible people. And I bring up this proverb because now I need to ask, when does that expectation suddenly change? Should there be a point in life where a sane individual would expect anyone to be able to thrive under those same conditions? Personally, I'd say the answer is probably never, and I say this because, from personal experience, when somebody comes at me sideways, telling me I'm a monster, or insulting me personally, or just generally yelling at me because I did something or said something that they didn't like, my typical response is to tell them to go fuck themselves and block them, not immediately go, "Oh, you're right, I'm a terrible person, teach me!" And I'd be willing to bet the same could be said for most people. In fact, there have actually been two very good examples of this in the past couple years, those being the names Junkie and Coyote Lovely. And for those of you who don't know who these are, they're both social commentators here on YouTube who got outed for either making a stupid mistake or for being an asshole to a bunch of people. And while I wouldn't condone what either of these people did, I can recognize that these were just moments where their flaws showed. Both of them were willing to do whatever it took to get a good story, including things like abusing the trust of the people around them or sleeping with the enemy, so to speak. Both of which got dogpiled not just by the furry community, but by their own communities as well. And because of it, neither of them are on YouTube anymore, to my knowledge. And given my personal interactions with them in the past, I will be the first to tell you guys that I don't like either of these individuals. But I'll also be one of the first to say that they shouldn't have been dogpiled into exile. But as I've said many times before, hatred, outrage, anger, all of them are like cancer in the sense that if you allow them to take hold, it will eventually spread. And both of these individuals were fairly well known for encouraging their audiences to be outraged. So when it came to light that they had flaws of their own turned against them. After all, hatred only ever encourages more hatred. But maybe if both they and their communities had been more willing to sit and have a conversation and actually talk about what's wrong rather than parading their outrage around for social points, maybe they'd still be around to this day making content rather than disappearing from society as a whole. And honestly, there was a time where even I fell into the same trap as these two. There was a time in my channel's history where I did encourage my own viewers to be outraged. A lot of the old Greymuzzle rants are a good example of this, and I don't know. Maybe that's why a few of the people I considered friends are no longer in my life. But at the same time, being willing to recognize my own fault and try to change is also probably why I'm still here on this platform. That is almost entirely because I have people in my community, specifically in the Discord server, who are willing to call me out and tell me privately, hey, you're being an asshole. Kinda stop, maybe? And to those of you who know who you are, and I know you know who you are, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, because I wouldn't be who I am today without the community that has helped me to grow. But I think that's where this little chat of ours is going to end, so until next time, everybody, bye-bye.